Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Geek. Welcome back to the channel, and welcome to the pre-show before we get into the Dune book study. So I want to thank Stephen Cruz. I don't know if you're out there watching right now, or if you will be able to join us tonight. You joined us last time, which was pretty awesome. But we did use that as your music. So thanks for your music, your pre-show music. It's always great time to listen to Stephen Cruz. If you don't follow him on Twitter or on Facebook or whatever, Stephen. Is it Stephen _ Ant Cruz or just Stephen Ant Cruz? I forget. But he posts a lot of his music clips and everything like that. Really, really cool stuff, and some art as well. So good stuff from Stephen there. But welcome to everybody. Let me check in with the chat here. Don't plan for tonight. I'm going to just be doing a kind of a Q&A, a little bit of a informal. I'll explain why I'm doing that in a second. But see, I think I don't know who technically was first, but I did see Matthew Flynn first popping up. So good to have you back with us, Matthew Flynn. Welcome. Madanui, welcome, Sarah. Paladin Demos with us. Owen Lister, Crispy, welcome, Crispy. Great to see Crispy there, channel member and all. Melissa Harris, Sartorin Clegane, welcome. Kamikaze, haven't seen you around in a while. Good to see you. The chat's jumping around on me here. Make sure I don't miss anybody. See, Wolf Media, welcome. Nanette Pacelli, welcome. Good to see you. I'm sure Troy Pacelli's there. He's not far behind if you're there. So, welcome. All right. So yeah, I was going to do a writing lesson, and I was going to include reviewing your writing samples, but it takes some time. It really does take time to do the writing samples. It takes not only time, but also a lot of brain power, a lot of energy, focus energy and stuff like that. And I don't think a lot of people realize that when they think of an editor or somebody looking at their work. Even people in my life, like my mother, for her job or whatever, she'll have reports or something and she'll say, can you look over this for me? Look over this for me, because I'm a writing teacher, so if anybody's going to be able to, look over something or catch something or be able to brush it up a little bit better, that would be me. And, one time it wasn't even a long report. It was kind of a couple pages, 2-3 pages. And she was like, can you just do this real quick? When I was over there for dinner. And I was like, okay. So I sat down, and there's no such thing as doing something like that really quickly. I mean, to do that, you have to first read what's being said. You have to take into account what the whole spirit of the purpose of that piece of writing is. You got to get the gist of that. Then you've got to go back and see how can you make it more clearly. I mean, that's apart from the surface level things of like catching, proofreading, catching little typos or grammatical mistakes or something like that. But if you're really going to improve like the sentence flow and really go in, it takes a while. It takes a bit of focus power and a bit of brain power. And even though it's something I'm trained to do and I enjoy doing, I find that I have to be careful about my schedule around that. Like if I have a day of where I'm grading or revising rough drafts of students' papers or something like that, that is all I can do that day. And I have to have an evening of just nothing but vegging afterwards, because it really does sap your ability to kind of focus and do some mental acuity and stuff like that. So because of the things I had going on today, because of some of the schoolwork and teaching stuff I had to do, I do have some samples that people sent me, and I will eventually get to them, but I just couldn't give that time and energy to it today with all the other things I had to do. So I didn't get that done. And as a result, usually my topics for a writing lesson kind of come from that. I'll pick out something or see something in people's samples that'll, maybe I'll talk about this. I'll use this as an example or an illustration. It just didn't happen today. So that's what's going on there. So no writing lesson today, but I am here for the pre-show, and we can just do a basic Q&A because there's been a lot of questions I've seen popped up in the either the comments or the chat from here or the comments to some videos or whatever that I didn't get to address because they weren't technically part of the topic of that, video. Sometimes when we do live streams and we're talking about Dune or something, or doing a rewatch of a film, when people ask me, what do you think about Bendis leaving and Wade coming back to Superman? Well, that's just completely off topic. I can't really stop and take the time to answer that. So I'll do Q&As like this every now and then so that I can address questions like that and, give my 2 cents on it, since everybody on YouTube is casting in their 2 cents. So that's what's going on. If you do have a question for me, I will try and look and see if anybody forgot, but do try and tag me, right at Professor Geek there, because that highlights it nice and well for me in the chat, makes me know that, oh, that's for me and it's not you guys talking to somebody else. So that would be would be helpful. But let me go back and see what's going on. See, we do have more people filing in. Good to see everybody. Troy said, "Yeah, I was in another screen sending you a PM." Oh, okay, cool. I'll check that after the pre-show, definitely. And going back, okay, didn't miss anybody there. Yeah, I think that I'm getting with each stream, I'm getting wiser to StreamYard's quirks and stuff like that. Not leaving StreamYard up, that tab open on the computer all day. Once I start the stream, that helps a lot. That helps with the video quality. I'm watching that on my YouTube now. Now, YouTube across their platform is having streaming issues. That's not just me. It's with Al's stream. It's with other people, live streams and stuff like that. I don't know if it's from every region, so I don't know how that's working out. But apparently, watching it from phones or tablets will tends to have more of a problem at the moment than watching it on a computer. And the replay is fine. So that tells me it's got to be on YouTube's end, because StreamYard does have issues. And if I don't really work around those issues, if I have too many tabs open on my computer time or something like that, the camera will be messy, and it's because of StreamYard. It's not because when you go back and watch the replay on YouTube, after it processes, it's still there. The problem's still there. But if the problem here is in the live, but it goes back and in the re-recorded, it's fine, that means it's YouTube's issue. So, just some bugs in the system. Hopefully that'll be worked out soon. Let's see. Sir Torin Clegane said, "I saw a video by Superframe where he discusses why he loves the character and what makes him special. I think it dropped on your birthday last year." Which character? I think you forgot to mention which character, unless you'd said that in a previous comment. Superman, I'm guessing, if it was on my birthday. Poetic timing there. Oh, and Lister said, "I've been reading some of Jack Kirby's The Eternals lately due to the movie announcement. Pretty good so far." Yeah, they are good. Don't get your hopes up for the movie. The movie's going to be awful. But yeah, Jack Kirby's Eternals is pretty good. Is that Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends t-shirt? Yes, it is, Chris P. Coolest comment yet. Let me go back to the StreamYard so I can show it off properly so it's not a delay. Yeah, you can't see Firestar. She's there on the bottom. Complete with Mrs. Lion. Mrs. Lion the dog is on the ice path behind Iceman. So yes, bummer you can't quite see the Firestorm there, but not going to stand up and do the pre-show. But yes, it is. Yes, Spider-Man is Amazing Friends. That was one of my I don't know what's the word for it, but the pivotal cartoons for me, growing up and enjoying heroes. It was He-Man, obviously, Masters of the Universe, Super Friends. Super Friends was huge for me because that introduced me to the DC canon and everything like that. And then I didn't, even though I mainly became a DC guy, I did have some Marvel in the beginning there with Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Love that cartoon. Dan Gilvezan, his voice is Spider-Man to me. That's just it. I know some people swear by, and he does a great job. The guy, I'm forgetting his name right now, the guy who does the voice for Spider-Man on the 90s, the wonderful, amazing 90s animated series. But Dan Gilvezan, I hear that voice like, "Spider-Man, where are you?" So that was it was a great show. It was a good series. They had some crossovers with other characters and everything like that. They even had Captain America, Namor. Who else did they have? Did they have the X-Men or Wolverine? I think Wolverine and the X-Men actually were in an episode. They were, because Firestorm and Iceman were mutants. So they there was a series where there's an episode where they had to go back to the school, go back to Professor Xavier's mansion there and help out with some stuff. And I think Wolverine was in that. He was a shorter Wolverine too, before the 90s series. So it was good stuff. Let's see. Melissa Harris, Bendis, a.k.a. Lex Luthor. Yeah. Yeah, Bendis is gone. Bendis is gone, and that's great. That's good news. It was good news when Didio left. But you're fooling yourself if you think it's all better now. It's all better now. Didio left. Bendis is gone. Now we hit hope. No, we can't. Stop it. The sickness is so ingrained in DC Comics, and they're bringing back Mark Waid. Wow, somebody doesn't know anything about. Look, this won't work. Mark Waid has written some amazing, wonderfully iconic Superman stuff in his past. He truly has. He's written some. Here's the thing: he's written some amazing, truly iconic Captain America stuff in his past, and he was their little trump card to bring back to Captain America after they just kind of fizzled out and decided to pretend that they were done with their nonsense of Cap Nazi. they weren't. They still had long ways to go, but people got tired of it, sick and tired of it, and to the point where they just started to save face. They decided, well, we're done with that arc now, and they brought back Mark Waid to be the. Well, Mark Waid doesn't know how to write anymore. He's so filled with agenda-driven ideology that he can't not put that in his stories. And his Captain America was just riddled with it. Are there wonderful moments in it? Are there elements and parts that really harken back to a great past of what he did with Captain America? Sure, absolutely. But he's so far gone down that path. And this is why I talk about it. You know, it might seem like it comes off as sort of I'm just trying to be cheeky about calling the disease of ideology. But no, it really does act like a disease. It really gets in and infects your thinking. And it just permeates throughout your whole mind. And it's an ideology. I mean, it's in your ideas. It's in the way you think. And once it creeps in, it controls everything. It controls everything you do. And people who try to defend it say, well, isn't that just how your brain works? I mean, the things you believe in and the things you value, of course. But a healthy psyche bases the things they do, their values, the things they believe in, on something that's tried and true, that does have a real foundation. You might not agree with it if you meet somebody, you know, but you will still respect the fact that they're well thought out. Like I know people from other religions or like their other religions or whatever who've really tried to clearly. I don't agree with their thoughts or their virtues or their beliefs, but I do respect how they came to them because I can see that they thought this thing through. They do have a good source of good, stability, a foundation. Ideologies are no source of foundation. Ideology is a thin little idea, usually appealing to people through insecurities. And as I mentioned in a before, it's up this scaffolding of protection that's so fragile around it, and it's just trying in the rather than break it back down and build something of a strong foundation, they just keep building outwards to try and make a better, more of a shelter around it, and it just gets ridiculous. It infects you. It's a disease. It permeates your thinking. In Mark Waid, again, I don't know the man personally. I know a lot of his behavior that he's been engaged in for years now is certainly indicative of somebody, somebody who needs help. It's just no other way of saying it. But his writing has shown that this ideology has so permeated his writing. There's no getting good iconic stories out of him anymore. So, if you're in the know and if you know the politics behind DC, and he was outed, he was shut out unfairly from DC because of some nonsense going on there with Jim Lee and everybody. But so on the one hand, it wasn't fair that he was shut out at that time, but he's don't look for anything great to come from Mark Waid's Superman. He's thrilled to be back on the character, I'm sure, and but look for preachy little Superman. It might be subtle at first until he gets his grounding, but count on it. It'll come. It's nothing to be excited about at all. Daniel Craig says Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends was extremely formative for me as well. Yes, awesome. Yeah. Just a great formative was the word I was looking for. Thank you for dropping that word. It's so hard, and it's kind of embarrassing to be a writing professor and to struggle for words. But I do it too when I'm teaching. It's something about being on the spot, especially being on a stream, because you're having to juggle 2 or 3 things at the same time. While I'm talking, I have to focus on what I'm saying, make sure that's, making sense and everything like that, and flowing with some sort of reasonable, coherence. But then I'm also looking at the chat to make sure, what's going on there. And then the video quality, monitoring that, StreamYard's getting a little fuzzy, then it clears up and whatever, so I don't know. But glad you gave me that word there. Yeah, Wolftown Media, they did have to fight the Juggernaut in that episode. That was the Juggernaut episode of Spidey. Yeah, and His Amazing Friends. Good. So Torrin Clegane, Gargoyles was a big part of my formative years. Every time I hear Keith David's voice, I instantly shout, "It's Goliath!" Yeah, Gargoyles was amazing. Now I was a little older at that point. So I was born in '79, but I loved Gargoyles. Still watched it, when it was airing. Loved every episode of it. It was really, really good. Especially those first 2 seasons. They were really something. So yeah, that was a well-done show. I've got the DVDs somewhere, or at least I think I have the first 2 seasons on DVD. I don't know. I've got to go back and rewatch them. It'll be fun. Jedi Master Zetopia says, how did you get into comics? What were the first ones you bought? I can actually show you the first comic book I ever read. It's right here on the wall, and have it framed. This is the first. It was obviously from the long box because I wasn't alive in the early '70s here, but this is it. Try and get it without the glare. the Batman family, Detective Comics Batman family. He's fighting Ultra Humanite. We got the Batgirl, Robin, the Demon, and Batmite. They all have little stories in it. 68 pages, no ads, from cover to cover, and an advertisement at the top. You could be a winner in the second Superman movie contest. So it tells you, so I guess that would have been 70. I guess maybe I was born right. Maybe it was like 79, 80. I don't know. That's the first comic book I ever bought and ever read all the way through that I remember, owning. So yeah, and it was because of I got in comics. Some people who watch my channel for a long time know the story, but because of the Batman '89 movie. I would show you. I've got the cool poster over there on my wall, the vintage poster of Michael Keaton's Batman, the huge, crazy tall poster that was out at that time. But my bed's a little messy over there. I haven't made it yet this morning. So, well, I made it this morning. Then I took a nap, and I haven't, as I usually do, take a nap right before streaming, and then wake up a little too late, and then I'm rushing to get on and everything like that. So. That's but yeah, Batman '89. That was that Batmania. I lived through that. I was like 8 or 9 years old at that time, probably 8, I guess. And yeah, that was it for me. That was that took hold in my mind. And for the longest time, it was Batman and Archie comics that I was reading up a storm. And it was right about the time that I was learning to read in school too. At that point, and I was actually behind in reading in school. The teachers were trying to get my parents to send me to summer school and stuff like that because I was really behind in reading. And one of the teachers pulled my parents aside and said, look, the trick is let him to read anything. Just get him reading all the time. And my parents were like, well, what about comic books? He's interested in these now. And then the teacher, luckily, this teacher had the sense to say, yes, get him to read it. If he likes reading, if he likes comic books, get him as many comic books as he wants and let him read it. And that did it. And now I'm a reading and writing professor. I mean, that started off the huge lifelong obsession with reading, but also with comics and whatnot. And that's why teachers, are not teachers, but parents of children who they'll find out what I do. They'll find out that I'm a reading and writing professor. And then they'll say, yeah, I just can't get my child interested in it. And I talk to them a little bit and I try and say, well, what is he into? Oh, he loves sports. I say, well, do you let him read sports magazines? Do you let him like, oh no, I mean, he's got to read something serious, for reading. No, he doesn't. Reading is reading. That act of comprehension, that act of recognizing the words on the page, let them read whatever they're interested in. Get it for them, support it no matter what. And once you grow in reading comprehension, then it's only natural. Once you get, that's not a stumbling block for you, comprehension as a child, then it's only natural that you will seek out other things you think might be interested in and read them. Sorry, I'm going on a little educator's rant here, but this is kind of where the question took me. And it drives me crazy how I see students in college, 18, 19, 20, who have such a low rudimentary level of reading comprehension. It's tragic. It's tragic. That's something you need when you go off in any profession you have, and it's because that, the silly standardized tests or whatever, is forcing them to read, this kind of thing. Well, did you read this one or whatever, or did you write or circle in the right bubble for this or that, and it doesn't really teach them how to love reading. And there's easy way to do that. Drives me crazy. Anyway, sorry. Big tangent there. Let's see what else. Serotonin Clicking owns the VHS of A Firestar Is Born. That's awesome. Yeah, they had the Spider-Man His Amazing Friends was available on Amazon Prime, or no, it was Netflix for a while. And I watched those all, and I watched the last one just in time before they took it off Netflix. And then you can't buy it. They won't release the DVDs anywhere. You got the old VHSs, of course. They just won't release it. I think it is available on Disney Plus now. But yeah, I don't know why they won't release the DVDs. Owen Lister said, I thought it was funny they gave Wolverine an Australian accent in that Spider-Man. He did have a bit of an Australian accent, didn't he? That sounds familiar. I'm trying to remember that. I think so. Perhaps he did. Matthew Flynn says, Batman is fine with beating or breaking bones, but not killing, and is never arrested. Yeah, Batman will do what he needs to pacitate. In the type of story that you're looking at, or it's like the Arkham games. Yeah, it's a desperate situation. He has to incapacitate these thugs. There's no time to call the police because there's no police around there. And in the Arkham games, there's no time to lock them up or tie them up. So yeah, you'll see him breaking wrists or whatever he can do to put that person out of commission so he can go save the people that need saving. Absolutely. But he will not kill. He does not kill, and he does not beat for fun. He does not beat out of a sense of vengeance or anything like that. Batman is all about self-control. I don't understand how people don't get this. And they try and say, no, he does. He's really brutal, and he likes to, he likes it what he does. No, that's the Joker. That would be the Joker. No, Batman for Batman to get under the Joker's skin so much, he's got to be all about self-control. Nonsense. Stop trying to make Batman the Punisher. Go watch a Punisher or read a Punisher. Stop pretending that Batman is that just because you like Frank Miller or some nonsense B-52 garbage. Anyway, boy, that's a tangent I could crawl up onto. Sound Engraver, welcome. Sound Engraver says, with the overuse, the mistreatment of sympathetic villains these days, is it possible to write such a villain without readers resorting to siding with them? That is a danger. It is a danger. The biggest example I can give for the danger of that is the Black Panther movie. Some people don't like Black Panther movie. I don't know why. The Black Panther movie, the story was just solid. And Black Panther was a wonderful character. I want to say T'Challa, but again, my brain's blanking here. Is that the father or is that him? I forget. Anyway, he was a great character. He was very Superman-like in that movie, honestly. Truly was. And Killmonger, though, maybe it was just the hot button issues of the day, but Killmonger was all about racial vengeance. That's just what Killmonger was about. And because of the nature and the tensions in society today, you had people these ridiculous posts on social media trying to say Killmonger was right. I watched Black Panther and I kind of agree with Killmonger. Well, you're kind of a villain then at heart, because that's not the answer. That's nothing but cold vengeance. That is not it. That's not the answer. Black Panther was the answer in that movie. Let's be brothers no matter what. We're all of the same tribe, I think, is even his line at the end, and that's he was a wonderful, wonderful movie, and he was a wonderful hero in that. But Killmonger is a great example of that. So to your question there, Sound Engraver, it is a danger. It's definitely a danger. And especially with the Joker movie and with this intent that everybody, as you say, this overuse and mistreatment of the sympathetic villain, people now use the sympathetic villain. So the idea, archetypically, the sympathetic villain is supposed to be there to help you realize but for the grace of God go I, So a little bit of element of that for you to be thankful for your own upbringing or for your own situations in life, for own lessons that you've been taught or whatever, and to give you something, a roadmap to kind of warn against. So we saw how this character here gave himself over or herself over a little bit to the temptation of self-pity or the temptation of vengeance or something like that. And that kind of spiraled and snowballed into the great horrible villain they became. That's supposed to be a warning. That's not supposed to have you rooting for them. That's an anti-hero, and that's a completely different archetype. So I think that's a really great way to put it. The sympathetic villain is being confused with the anti-hero. So when people watch things like Killmonger and Black Panther or the Joker in that movie that wasn't about the Joker at all, and they I kind of get where he's coming from. Yeah, that's anti-hero stuff. That's not sympathetic villain stuff. So it is harder these days and times. I think you've got a great point to write a good sympathetic villain, but it can be done. I do believe it can be done. Some elements of that were, well, I don't know. He's so much trickster. He's not really so much sympathetic. I was going to say Loki for a second about sort of being the younger brother in the shadow, but no, that actually doesn't apply so much. You go back and look at the old Batman's rogue gallery. But Batman is known for having one of the best villains, rogues galleries out there. And it's not the best, of course. I mean, or it's not better than, I don't know how to put it. Superman has a wonderful rogues gallery as well. So does Wonder Woman and stuff. But Batman's is so psychologically resonant. And they're so wonderfully psychologically linked to him as a character. So you can look at somebody like Two-Face. If you go back, Sound Engraver, and watch that original 2 episodes of the Batman animated series and watch when Two-Face was created. I mean, talk about a wonderful, sympathetic villain. And it makes Batman all the more heroic for truly trying to save Harvey Dent from himself. And in good Batman stories, he should always be trying to save Harvey Dent from himself because of what Harvey Dent represented, that light in the darkness that Batman wants to still believe is there. So it's, when you turn on that on its head and just make him brutalizing Two-Face, no, it doesn't work. So it's hard. I think it can be done. And Batman Rogues Gallery is a good roadmap for that. Owen Lister, Gargoyles. Yeah, Gargoyles. Gargoyles are Disney's Batman. Oh, gotcha. Okay. Gargoyles are Disney's Batman. They're crossover elements. They're crossover elements, the gargoyle protector of the night kind of idea. Paladin demo. What? If carrots are good for your eyes, can they dial a phone? I have no idea what you're talking about there. Is that a reference I'm missing? I don't know what you're saying. Jedi Master Zootopia. That's awesome that you have that framed. Yeah, the comic is sweet. I need to take it out and read it again. I do have a few key comics framed. I have Superman Action Comics, the one that inspired What's So Funny About Truth, Justice, and the American Way. Inspired Superman versus the Elite, which is one of the greatest animated films out there in DC's catalog. We've got that framed. I have more of a recent one of the Super Sons comics that R.T. Bear did the variant cover for. Good friend of the channel, R.T. Bear there. R.T. Bear, my buddy, who sent me this awesome Superman framed and wrote to a smart geek, Professor Geek. Love that. He watches the channel sometimes, so if you're there, thank you, R.T. Bear. Again, what else do I have framed? Oh, I also have a really cool Batman comic from the 90s that Norm Brayfogle. I had to get up and get it, but I'd have to reach up there and everything and knock things over. But Norm Brayfogle, the wonderful cover, I can't quite see the issue number, but it's the one where Batman is suspended upside down because of Scarecrow. So Scarecrow's got him, infected with the toxin there. And Scarecrow's in this room and Batman's upside down. And it was when Tim Drake was introduced. And Tim Drake's my favorite Robin. I love you, Dick Grayson. He's amazing. But Tim Drake is just where it's at for me. And Tim Drake is there. He's thrown the window open. And it's so dynamic with the lines there and everything. And he's in silhouette and the moon's behind him. And he's there to rescue Batman. And you see the fear on Scarecrow, so even through his mask, and his body posture and everything like that, because Robin's here to rescue Batman. It was pretty sweet cover. So I love that. That's framed as well. I need to get at least one or two more framed that I have. But yeah, I frame the ones that are important to me, They're sort of milestones. See, Jedi Masters Utopia again. So I learned so much from reading comics. I learned so many words because I saw them in comics, didn't know what they meant, and looked them up in the dictionary. Yeah, and that's something that I did too, absolutely. And it's easy for kids especially to get kind of lazy. I'm not going to stop reading the same dictionary right now. And I would tell them, well, keep a notepad next to you and scribble them down so you can look them up later. Or these days, you don't have to stop. I mean, what's a dictionary? You just yell across the room to your Alexa or, your Google on your phone or whatever assistant. You could just ask it vocally and it'll tell you these days. So yeah. Yeah, it's a great way to learn a lot of things. Wolf 10 Media says, I don't want to derail this pre-show, but this is needed to be said. They are now trying to indoctrinate the children now. No math, no science, no history. Just you are an oppressor of. Yeah, or you are oppressed, as you said. Exactly. Yeah. Well, that's the new mantra there. And it's a very sexy, theme and motto for your life, because if you're a victim, then it's not your fault. And if it's not your fault, then you shouldn't have to do anything to overcome. Other people just need to stop getting in your way. Now, that's not to say that some people in the world aren't victimized. It's a brutal world. People are victimized at times. But for even people who are truly victimized to settle down in that mentality, I mean, you look at wonderful stories in the past of, I teach the narrative of Frederick Douglass, the autobiography, the narrative of Frederick Douglass sometimes in my class as an example of an early heroic kind of narrative. Imagine if Frederick Douglass had just sat around as a slave and said, well, I'm just a victim. I wish people would stop oppressing me. No. He said, there's nothing I can do about my situation except get up and try and better myself. And he learned, found ways to teach himself how to read. And because of all that, he was able to get to a place where he could then influence the country and the abolition of slavery and everything like that. If you're taught nothing but, yeah, you're a victim, here, make a picket sign with us, go tell people how they're oppressing you, that does nothing for you. but people are more interested in demanding they be accepted as they are than trying to better the status of who they are. And that's the answer. That's the answer even out of oppression. But don't try to tell the modern society that. StreamYard is being a little bit weird here. Sometimes if it's a focus issue, it's just a matter of doing that for a second. Looks like it's fine on StreamYard again. So I'm going to see how YouTube catches up to that. Good old stream. Yeah, actually helped it out a little bit. No, it didn't. I don't know. Let's see here. Stop cam for a moment. Usually helps. We'll see. But getting back to more questions here. That was with 10 Media. Jedi Masters Utopia. Stan Lee is the only reason I know what Excelsior means. Yeah, Excelsior. Yeah. Great catchphrase of Mr. Stan Lee. The late, great Mr. Stan Lee. Yeah. Daniel Craig says, when it's you against a mob, you would be negligent to not completely incapacitate an assailant. Yeah, for Batman. And when you don't kill, but you can incapacitate. Absolutely. Yeah. T'Chaka was the late king. Thank you. T'Challa. I knew T'Challa was right, but I couldn't think of what the father was, and it was something similar. So it was T'Chaka and T'Challa. That's right. Let's see. Yeah, I remember that Kamikaze people saying Thanos is right. Thanos is right because they put that sort of environmentalist spin on it. Get a life. Come on. Media says, also, I wanted Killmonger to shut up. Every time I heard him talk, I was whispering, shut up in the theater. I know. He's well-written villain. Definitely is. But it's just mind-boggling to me that people tried to make him some sort of unsung hero of the film. It's nonsense. Utter nonsense. Matt Inouye. I think a movie is the kind of BS that Joker will try telling you to manipulate you. Great, yeah, good point. I like that actually. That's interesting. I like that. Good. Daniel Craig, yeah, you're right. Darkwing Duck is Disney's Batman and criminally neglected. Amen to that. I don't watch the new series. I've heard that it's pretty decent and everything like that, and so maybe it is. But I heard that they bring Darkwing Duck into that series and as well as Gizmo Duck. That's kind of interesting because I always wanted Gizmo Duck from DuckTales to team up with Darkwing because Launchpad was in both of them. So why couldn't they cross over like that? But I have to check that out and see. Let's see. Oh, and Lister said, my pastor and I are working on a movie script. Oh, interesting for my character. Reaper Grimm, a supernatural noir as part of my Trinity cinematic universe. Interesting. So would Beetle Blaze then sort of be your Superman or Paragon type archetype? And then Reaper Grimm would be sort of your darkish, a Batman type. Interesting. Your pastor's helping you. Interesting. Let's see. Anything else? Yes, Net. Yeah, hit that thumbs up, folks. Please do that for me. Appreciated. I don't want to refresh in case I lose anything here, but yeah, hit that thumbs up. You can definitely use that. Daniel Craig says Gizmo showed up in the old. Did he show up in the old Darkwing a couple times? Did he really? I'll have to go back because I haven't watched all the old Darkwing cartoons. I do. I found like some children's books of Darkwing Duck and comic books. So my daughter, Alyssa, knows them. It's funny too. I'll say, Alyssa, what does Darkwing Duck say? And she says, let's get dangerous. So, yeah, she likes him. And I do have a couple of the DVDs. I don't have the whole collection. I think that's available on Disney Plus too now. That is one cool thing about Disney Plus is they give you access to a lot of those older series. Yeah. All right, I think I'm out of the questions there. So let me check the time here. No, we're good. Okay, I've got about 10 more minutes or whatever before I want to pause it and do the switch over and everything. Looks like camera quality is just, I don't know what's going on with that tonight. It's always something. Always something. Just don't know how to fix it. I mean, part of it too is, like I said before, I'm in a rural area, so I'm sure that's it. But I don't know how that could be it, because when I look at the StreamYard tab, I am crystal clear. I mean, crystal clear. So much clearer than I've ever been on YouTube. But I go back over to the YouTube, and it's even when it's at its best, it's still not as good as the streaming quality on StreamYard is. So I don't understand what's going on with that. It's a mystery. But anyway, so I talked about the Mark Waid coming back to Superman. I kind of covered The Mandalorian season 2 a little bit last time in a pre-show part, but people are asking me of how I think. I'm not at all excited about it because I don't believe in supporting Disney right now. Now, it's interesting if you talk to all of us in the community, and I'm not including Al in this because Al is so far off the scale of not even worrying about discernment. And I say that, I'm not even jokingly saying that. I think he would agree. Al, it doesn't matter if he knows something's going to really stink. He'll still watch it, see if there's something of interest in it, something to enjoy about it. That's just his mentality. And that's fine, but you sacrifice your voice of criticism that matters to the storytellers at that point. So on the scale of sort of worrying about sending a message, on the one hand you got Troy, and I'm just giving a rough. I mean, he can tell you his specifics and everything, but Troy tends to be of the belief that you have to support what they do that's good, but then not support what they do that's bad. So you're sending the proper message and everything. And that would make logical sense, right? That seems like it make logical sense, except that for me, I don't see them as being any kind of logical decision makers. There's so many convoluted bureaucracies when it comes to filmmakers or publishers and whatnot, that it's not just the content creator listening to the feedback of the audience and then working as it should be. There are so many filters beyond that you can't just operate logically from my stance in the middle. Now, on the other end is Fanman. Fanman believes in 100% complete boycotts no matter what, to the point of, and he said this before, publicly, but he can't even watch the original Star Wars movies anymore because he feels that what Disney's done to him has ruined that for him. Or he can't watch the original Marvel films because he feels that the nonsense they brought to it has ruined that for him. I'll never go that far. Disney will never, ever take away the glorious classics that I have. They don't get to take that from me at all. But I do believe that I do believe in boycotting them. And they need to be boycott, in certain ways. I mean, what is a boycott, right? I mean, obviously I pay for Disney Plus because my daughter loves her Disney Plus. She's on the autistic spectrum. She doesn't understand what daddy means by a boycott and then the content. No, she wants her princess movies, when she wants them on her tablet and stuff. So everybody's a different idea of boycott, but for me, I'm not going to talk about or promote or join in the hype of something like Mandalorian. Now, what I'm told is that Mandalorian season 2, let's say Jon Favreau's involved. So I'm just certain it's going to be an amazingly well-told story. I'm really almost positive it will be because Jon Favreau's involved. And as I said last time, even the movies and the things that he's done that have been misguided from the formulation of the ideas are still end up being well-done stories. Like, we don't need more live-action Disney remakes. Stop it. We did not need a live-action Lion King, a live-action Jungle Book. Stop it. There's no reason for that to exist. But because he made them, you can tell that they were quality films. But I didn't watch Lion King. But the idea is that if season 2 of Mandalorian came out, and somehow, some way, let's say there was no nonsense agenda-driven stuff. I don't see how that can be with Ahsoka Tano in there and with Dave Filoni getting his dirty little Ahsoka-loving fingers in the mix. But let's say there's no agenda-driven stuff in season 2. And let's say they announce that season 3 will be the final season. Let's say probably not, but let's just say for argument's sake that they say, that's the end of the story that Favreau wants to tell, a 3-season arc. Okay, so season 3 would be the end of Mandalorian, let's say. And then at that point it's wrapped up and there's no more of it. Then if people tell me, and if the consensus still is that there's no ties to the sequel trilogy whatsoever, it's respectful of the EU, and that it doesn't have any agenda-driven nonsense whatsoever, at that point, then I would watch it and enjoy it if that's the case, and then even talk about it publicly. Because at that point, I'm no longer doing Disney any favors about promoting something they have upcoming. The convoluted nature, the bureaucracy of Disney right now, you're no longer just talking to Jon Favreau or Dave Filoni when you come out against these shows. No, you're talking to the board and all the corporate BS people and all this kind of nonsense. And there's no straight line anymore. And the people who make the decisions don't know anything about storytelling. These are the idiots who say, well, Mark Waid did some classic Superman comics. Let's put him on Superman now. without even a clue or a side thought to all of the garbage that's gone on and what Mark Wade's name means to most fans now, or even most previous fans of his work. You know, they don't bother taking in all that. They just look at sort of numbers and make these kind of blind decisions. You know, that's the kind of nonsense that says Zack Snyder did a good Watchmen movie. Let's get him to do Superman. What? You know, I mean that's the kind of decision making you have. So you can't treat them in logical ways. For my stance on the issue, the only way you can send a message is to stop giving them money, stop giving them money, stop giving them money. When they start to kind of maybe sort of get it and give you a little something, still stop giving them money, stop giving them money, stop giving them money. You know, and again, that can mean different things. Like I said, I mean, I have to subscribe to Disney Plus, but I'm certainly not going to go out and promote their films. I'm not going to buy any of their stuff. I'm going to continue to speak out against it with my platform, which is nothing compared to YouTube standards, but it's certainly more than just a weekend basement YouTuber, you know, definitely. So yeah, you have to kind of draw your stuff like that, and it's as wonderful as it would be if a message would be sent if we bought their stuff that was good and respectful, but didn't buy the other stuff, and then they realized. I mean, we've seen that with comics. How long in DC Comics history has it been that the back issues are selling better than the current garbage? They don't care. They don't care. That's just. I mean, what was Didio's constant trope in front of it? Yeah, well, looks like we got to shake things up then. Shaking things up or why people are going back to the back issues to begin with, idiot. That no one wants that new garbage. But just would not learn. Oh, well, clearly we have to do the same thing we've been doing again. That'll fix it. You know, and Disney's the same way. Disney's they're still there. When you do get a diamond in the rough or whatever because of this person happening to be on this series or whatever, that's good. That's great. But we'll see how it happens after the fact. You know, I have no interest in promoting The Mandalorian right now. That's only going to do Disney favors. That's only going to enable them to give you, you know, Captain Marvel as or Brie Larson as you know, as a female version of Red. Like there's some garbage like that, you know. That's or she's going to be Bastila or something like that. You know, it's nonsense. If you support one finger of the hand, the other fingers are going to feel that you're supporting them too, and they're just going to do what they want. There's no logical discernment among the hand there when it comes to Disney. So that's a weird reference or weird metaphor. Sound Graver says, I could be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. But I'm having a feeling The Mandalorian will be integrally connected to the sequel trilogy. I wouldn't be surprised. That would be the underhanded kind of garbage that Disney would pull. Let's lure them in with something that is true to Star Wars, and then let's indelibly link it in the end some way to everything that's come before. Bet your bottom dollar Dave Filoni is going to link The Mandalorian to Rebels with Ahsoka Tano. Absolutely. And Rebels had good things, but it was also riddled with issues. And yeah, they'll do it even further. They will do it even further. I don't doubt that. Unless how would you describe the Eternals? I mean, it's Jack Kirby kind of, you know, in Marvel universe for what he was doing with like, or what he would do with like the New Gods and stuff like that in the DC universe. I'm not really an expert on the Eternals. I have to go back and reread a lot of stuff to really talk with any, you know, authority on the matter. So, hang on. Okay. Thought that was a spider, but it's not. All right. Might have to see me go all spider destroyer on the camera again. So I am going to go ahead and take a break at this point. I got 10 minutes to go. So who knows what's up with the camera, but I'll just go back to Avatar as I usually am for the Dune book study. And I'll bring Alan here and we'll get going with our content on that. We're going to only go about an hour, 10 minutes maybe, but I really don't even want to go that. I like to keep these book studies short. We do have a big chunk to get through, so we'll see how that works. If we have to stop early, we'll just catch up, pick up the rest of the slack later. But let me go ahead and put the screen up and break off at this point, and I'll be back in just a few. All right, we are back here. Started a minute or two earlier just to banter before we jump into the study. So no worries if you're still needing a minute or two. We will we'll make sure we don't start before 10. But welcome to the Dune book study, part whatever it is. But we are going to be looking at chapters. If you're counting up the chapters, Frank Herbert doesn't number them, but chapters around 31 to the end of book 2. So be wrapping up as soon as book 3 and the prophet page comes there. But with me always is my trusty TA Al Conan. Say hi, Al Conan. I keep forgetting to change my name to Prof Mua Geek. I think that would do that now, just to remind myself to do it later every time.
I'll just leave it at Big Al. I'm doing all right. How are you, sir? Doing?
Good. I saw you in the chat. I heard my name. The sleeping giant rising.
And
I would like to say one
talking about the Mandalorian.
Wow, you did that well, right on the fly. Good job. I do need to actually I think I can I think I can edit your name for you. Yeah, I can.
Oh man.
Sweet. Oh, the power. I'm just gonna keep it to Al Conan. But no, look at the power I have. I've realized now.
Baron,
oh man.
Al Conan,
nice.
at least.
Sorry. Look at the vanity.
Or at least
diva.
Big Al Conan.
Baron.
Well, Baron spelled.
You want Baron or big? We're good here. Oh my gosh. It's just talking and typing at the same time. Can't do it. I do need to clarify. Troy, good friend Troy, shoots me a message. This is what he said he was typing me in a PA. Says, did you cut your beard down to a porn stash? And I'm like, porn stash? What? I got a goatee. There's not a porn stash. What are you talking? Then he sends me a picture of Just for Men gray. He's like, the goatee's so gray it doesn't show up on the camera. I'm like, whoa.
You're lagging, by the way.
Whoa.
People are saying.
Okay.
We are out of sync.
On. Let me refresh here. Well, be quiet for a second while I finish my thought, and then I'll refresh while you make fun of me, I'm sure. But the lights in here, the lights make me look gray, and I'm not gray. Look at my car videos. I mean, there's gray. I have gray in my hair and gray in my beard, but it's not that bad. The stage lighting in here makes makes everything look gray. Wolftown Media's wonderful Jedi birthday pic of me, which is awesome. He's got me with gray hair. I'm like, what? I don't have gray hair. But it's because of the lights in here. Everything looks like that. Go watch my car videos. I'm not lying. Anyway, all right. I'm going to refresh. Go ahead and make fun of me.
Wasn't going to make fun of you, but if you want me to, sure you don't have gray in your beard. Neither do I. What is this problem? Do you have to like reboot or something to get the lag right?
That's what I've been doing. I've been rebooting, but when I came back in, now there's 2 of me. That's kind of weird. Now there's there's like the ghost of my past incarnation on the page. So I don't know. Let me ask the chat. How's the lag now that I rebooted? Let's see what's up with that. Blah blah blah.
Blah 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 blah.
Blah 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 blah.
Blah blah.
Blah blah blah.
Oh.
Wolftown Media says I made it gray for the contrasting color. No, I didn't mind it. That was awesome. I was just like, I hope people don't actually think I'm gray. I mean, I have gray. I'm going gray, of course, but I'm not that far gone. All right, Sound Engraver, Nanette Pacelli, they both say it sounds good. No lag. Awesome. All right. Good.
Nothing wrong with a little bit of gray, or
not at all.
A lot of gray, depending, who you are.
I'm told by the ladies that it's not a negative trait. Al just leaves that silence. Just let that hang. Thanks, Al. Thanks, co-host.
Yeah. Just let that one alone.
Worst co-host ever.
All right. You love
All right.
me.
I'd be lost without you, Big Al.
You
Lost
are a
without
friend.
you.
You are a friend of Almus.
I was a friend of Al.
Take my balisette and sing a song.
Let's go ahead and get started then. Started with, I guess, chapter 31-ish, if I'm counting that up right. It's hard to count with pages sticking together and everything like that. But we'll go ahead and get with. We last left them when Paul and Jessica had made their way to an outcropping of rocks that Kynes had told them this is the place to go to meet the Fremen. And they found some Fremen, but they are being attacked by them, or they're at a standoff, you know. Stilgar is, we know it's still because the person from the shadows has said, get their water still, you know, so they're about to be attacked for trespassing on Fremen land, on Freeman land. You know, I love that dual use of the word there. I like that we get this idea again. This is something we've heard from Paul a number of times, but Stilgar here makes the comment again, a child who thinks and speaks like a man. They you know, as a reaction to Paul, and we've seen that from Kynes. We've seen that from somebody else too, to Paul. You know how he's a man beyond his years. He's a boy of 15, but he seems like someone so much more mature.
Well, even his mother's mentioned it.
Oh yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure. And one of the things that I think is interesting especially at this point with Paul and Jessica's, mother and son here, their adventure together, the difference between their reactions together is how we, again, remember I said at the beginning of this study that this is a book of dichotomies. It's a book of the masculine divided from the feminine. It's the rural divided from the urban. It's the space divided from the land, and all that kind of stuff. And in one of the ways that, each of those dichotomies are kind of contextualized within each other. And the idea that Jessica and Paul do tend to represent a healing of the rift between masculine and feminine, and yet they're mother and son, not two lovers or anything like that, or man and wife or anything like that. So, but that's also remember Herbert was a Jungian, and Herbert knows his mythology, and this he's writing Paul as a Messiah type character. So there is this aspect even in the prophecy, the Lisan El Gib, is the idea that the mother shall bear the son. You're going to have, they don't go into the virgin aspect of it, but you've got that sort of Mary and Christ child aspect of mythology being played with here. And again, no respect in calling it mythology. I'm a Christian myself, but it's just when I'm talking about literary terms and whatnot, I tended to revert to that kind of language. So every now and then I'll have somebody, how dare you? I'm like, no, that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. So,
like I said, it's appropriate. You're talking about it in literary term.
Exactly. So I want to just kind of plant that a little bit, and as we'll look for it, and I'll call attention to it as we get there. But I really do want to talk about the action writing. This is a good little specific writing lesson for those of us here who are writers. When Jessica decides to act and to incapacitate or to take a hold of Stilgar, he's about to kill her, right? He says, Paul can come with us. Paul's been, Kynes sent us to get Paul, but you're no worth to us. You're not, worth your water is more worthy or worth more to us than the care of helping you across the desert and such. And he's trying to be very practical. The Fremen are so practical when it comes to survival. Unless you've been deep trained from childhood to live here, you could bring destruction onto the entire tribe. It is law, and we cannot carry it useless. And I love this. Jessica's motion started as a slumping, faint to the ground. It was the obvious thing for a weak outworlder to do, and the obvious slows an opponent's reactions. All right, so the real action hasn't taken place yet. This is still slow. This is the slow beginnings of it, and he can take time to explain things. That's good. It takes an instant to interpret a known thing when that thing is exposed as something unknown. Great line. She shifted as she saw his right shoulder drop to bring a weapon within the folds of his robe to bear on her new position. A turn, a slash of her arm, a whirling mingled robes, and she was against the rocks with the man helpless in front of her. That's so brilliant because that paragraph and the time it takes to read that, and the time, again, between the distance of narrative time and real time there, he's showing you how quick her movement was. we first get this slumping, and here's why she's doing the slumping, and here's what he'll think about the slumping. And then she sees him reach for the weapon, a turn, a slash of her arm, a whirling of mingled robes, and she was against the rocks with the man helpless in front of her. That's so cool, because even as a reader, you're like, well, what happened? You know, you're like with Stilgar there going, what? How did this happen?
It's almost like a Western when a gunfighter is facing a superior gunfighter. Mm-hmm. It's like he starts the motion, but before he knows it, his gun's shot out of his hand.
Yeah,
kind of trope that you would see in an old Western.
Exactly.
It's like if he's like suddenly disarmed and in danger before he even realizes it.
Yeah. And it's a really cool little scene too, and you got to respect Jessica's ability, because for a while there, Jessica has been in awe of Paul and his new, spice-induced abilities of, being the Kwisatz Haderach and everything like that, how they're coming to bear, and his mentat capabilities and such. But now she's able to show her goods there as well. And I love Stilgar's reactions when he's in her, in her hold. Tell them to stop hunting my son, Jessica says. They've stopped, woman. He got away as you intended him to. Great gods below. Why didn't you say you were a weirding woman and a fighter? And later on, she says, tell them to go out to the basin where I can see them. You better believe, blah, blah, blah. And if I refuse, how can you? Oh, leave me be, woman. We mean no harm to you. Great. You could do this to the strongest of us. You're no worth than 10 times your weight in water. So I like his reactions there. And then, of course, the most hilarious insults to the Fremen. She's trying to order them to stand down and they won't. Do as she says, you worm-faced, crawling, sand-brained piece of lizard turd. Do it or I'll help her dismember you. Can't you see the worth of this woman? And they got line 2, the worth of this woman. The Fremen, who are not misogynist, they are practical. They would kill man, woman, anybody who is going to be worth more for water than not. They're not brutalizing in general. They thought these were trespassers, and they do have a sense of honor, within their tribe and stuff like that. But they have to be very practical for survival reasons, in the desert.
Yeah, and like I said, she's not doing this to just Joe average Fremen guy.
Yeah, good point.
She's doing this to Stilgar, the one that everyone looks up to and knows could kill them all.
Exactly.
He is the best of that tribe. That's why he's in the position he's in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And doesn't this? If you can, later he says, if you could do this to the strongest of us, imagine what she can do, to any of you, So, she does have some thoughts here. So when they've been accepted, and she's going to go along with them, she promises to teach them the weirding way. And I like that word, weirding. I think Troy pointed out that when they were talking about the weirding room, weirding was the Fremen name for combat and everything like that. That's what their moves look like to the Fremen, because weirding is typically used for like magical kind of stuff, so the weirding way, it's like it's hard to be understood, that kind of, it's almost a mystical element to that kind of movement, to that kind of fighting.
I kind of equate it to us seeing a truly gifted martial artist.
Sure.
Moving, being able to do things that just look physically impossible.
Exactly. Yeah. Even a little bit more than that too, I think too. But yeah, that's the wrong line of thinking. And then she's trying to give him a sign, and she does this recalls from memory of looking at a place on Kyne's map, and she talks about the Sietch, specific one, and kind of using a sense of thought there. And she says, if only they knew the tricks we use, she must have been good, that Bene Gesserit of the Missionera Proctivia, who these Fremen are beautifully prepared to believe in us. Now, this is a concept that Jessica keeps going back to, and I think Herbert's playing with this in a fun way. So the Bene Gesserit the Missionaria Proctiva have gone out to different planets and planted these prophecies, should anybody be in need of them, so for Bene Gesserits, who in that day, and it's been so it's taken such a root for the Fremen that they even have a Reverend Mother of their own, But as we'll find out throughout the development of this reading that we have for today, the Fremen have evolved that idea of the Reverend Mother and the initiation rites and stuff like that. And there's a sense that even on the one hand of Jessica going in thinking, yeah, well, these are pre-planted prophecies, we put them there. Did you, though? That's what the text is asking us. The text, especially with Paul's reaction and Paul's prescience, is he really acting pre-established prophecies by man, or was the pre-establishing of those prophecies pre-established in its own right? You know, that's the idea, because you do have this spiritual nature with the Orange Catholic Bible and the jihad that Paul's trying to evade and everything like that. And even though we don't speak of any particular gods or goddesses outside of, you know, the makers or whatever, the worms, there is the question of, yeah, man might think they laid this and did it on their own, but did they really? Is this really the Bene Gesserit's doing, or is this a prophecy so ingrained in humanity anyway, in the human psyche? So that's why I resist this notion of just siding on the idea that, oh, it's not really a prophecy because they've just, you know, it's all planned by the Bene Gesserit. I think the text is begging that question from us, you know, especially as we'll see with Paul later. I like Paul's reaction to Chani too. Mm-hmm. Chani shows him up, you know, at one point, because she could have taken him, you know, at this point, this and that. And I like in his mind, that girl, she was like a touch of destiny. He felt caught up on a wave, in tune with emotion that lifted all his spirits. And then they've got the little bit of rivalry between them. I like that. Are you going to say something?
Yeah, well, yeah. Another sentence about his reaction I really like too is when he says she moved like a gazelle dancing over the rocks.
Good one.
Paul
yeah.
felt hot blood in his face, was thankful for the darkness.
Yes. So even though Paul's a boy of 15, and you might think that okay, well, surely a boy of 15 is used to having these thoughts of the opposite sex by now. You know, look, think about his upbringing and whatnot. This is kind of a coming of age and even sort of a recognition of the opposite sex, you know, for him. And we see it with Chani here. We'll even see it with Hara later as well. So,
and also
I like
this is the girl he's seen in his dreams too.
Exactly. This is the anima, right? This is the girl of his dreams, quite literally, you know, in terms of the prescience. Yeah. Jessica thought, let's see. Stilgar came to the young girl who had embarrassed Paul, said, Chani, take the child man under your wing. Keep him out of trouble. Chani touched Paul's arm. Come along, child man. Paul hid the anger in his voice, you know? So I like that little bit of rivalry before they actually, you know, come together.
You know, he's already in love. But don't forget, before all this happened, that Paul himself showed his fighting skill by taking out one of their men as well, which is going to come back. Jameis.
Yeah.
So that plays an important role.
Yeah, exactly. Jameson. Yeah, we'll come back to that. And here we have, let's see. So that's it. I'm done with that chapter if you are.
Oh, yeah, you got it.
Okay. Yeah. And the next one now, they're on their way. They're making their travel to this to the next sietch or next place they're going to hold up for the night or the day rather.
The Cave of Ridges, I believe.
Yeah. I really do like this conversation that Jessica has with Stilgar. Stilgar, I think, is an example of, because one of the things that Herbert's doing in this, you know, he's playing with religion, he's playing with the spiritual aspect, he's playing with the prophecies that are in mythology, you know, that it's in your collective unconscious, you know, it's that's why I say it's not just a matter. I mean, you can try and make it that all you want, but it's simply an unfair reduction of the text. It's just simply not a matter of man manipulating belief systems. Herbert was a Jungian. That's just a misunderstanding of the author and what he's doing. Herbert was a Jungian, and he knew mythology. He knew about the collective unconsciousness. So now he's certainly not arguing for any one religion, but he's definitely arguing for that human destiny aspect. And he's playing with the idea: is it prophesied or is it, you know, manipulated? Either or, that kind of idea. Yeah.
Paladin Demo is bringing up a point. It's like, no, the Bene Gesserit planted the so-called prophecies when their gene forging project comes to completion. So you're stuck with that Paul. You're so stuck that Paul is divine. He is not. He's a human evolution taken to the nth degree. Well, yeah. There's a little bit more,
that's what he believes. See, Paladin Demos, he's not taking into account Frank Herbert's background or what Frank Herbert's really doing with the text. Paladin Demos really stuck on this idea of him being a nothing but a plant, nothing but the product of this and that. Now, there's an aspect to that, and there's something to be said for that. I'm about to get into a part of that here as well. But again, from a Jungian standpoint, and from a mythological standpoint, that's simply not the answer that one can settle on when it comes to mythology, because there is a root of these kind of prophecies in mythology from psychology. And Paul himself comes up against that when he's trying his best, trying his best in his own right to avoid coming out against the jihad and ending up everything in the way that he doesn't want it to go, and the people who are going to die and stuff like that. But he finds that he can't. It's just an ineffable plan. If that's just mankind, then that wouldn't make sense. You take it into the context. So it doesn't work. Now, part of that here we see with Jessica talking to Stilgar. She thinks of Stilgar as a typical type of leader. She thinks she hasn't figured out. They misunderstand each other. I forget the word he used, but we've underestimated you. Yeah, we've underestimated each other, they say at one point. But Stilgar as a leader, Herbert, another aspect that he does here, as I've said before, he warns against the superhero. He doesn't like the superhero. He doesn't want that. He saw that with JFK, for example, and the idea where any hero, whether, no matter how they came into power and politically in whatever political system, any leader that is looked at as a hero and given just sort of blind obedience to, or more of a, he warns against that. And Stilgar, I think, is probably Herbert's example of a leader who resists that. We saw that Kynes even started to fall into that role. And certainly his father was saying, his father's voice was saying, warn against that. Don't, that's the most dangerous thing at all, is the superhero when you create that for the people. And yet Kynes was also kind of trying to create that for himself, being sort of a religious leader. But I think Stilgar, and the many of the things he says here, let's see, he talks about when she thinks he wants her as a mate, and he says, nope, that's not what I want at all. He's talking about the young men who are already, he says, a leader, he said the young men who are coming of age would want to fight me for it. Then I would have to defeat them. Then I would lose their fighting arm, so I should be sensitive to what they're going through and not give them temptation. That's really subtle leadership, and really empathetic leadership, not just a tyrannical one. And I love this line he says, I'll just read that. He says, there are those among my men who have just reached the age of wild spirits, he said. They must be eased through this period. I must leave no great reasons around for them to challenge me, because I would have to maim and kill among them. That is not the proper course of a leader, if it can be avoided with honor. A leader, you see, is one of the things that distinguishes a mob from a people. He maintains the level of individuals. Too few individuals and a people reverts to a mob. Beautiful line. And that's something that that's counterintuitive to people who want the power of the people behind them, whip them up into a frenzy, and then you can have their support or whatever, or they're easily manipulated. But for a leader to demand that he take them still one-on-one individually, that's brilliant. That's a real true leader. So Stilgar is really a great example of this. And Paul, to his benefit, is trying to be that leader. He's trying to avoid this, trying to avoid that, and we'll see his journey as unfolds as we go along. But I love that. And then I love too when Stilgar, Jessica kind of realized that, she says, Stilgar, I underestimated you. Such was my suspicion, he said. Each of us, she said, apparently underestimated the other. And Stilgar says, I should like an end to this. I should like friendship with you and trust. I should like that respect of each other, which grows in the breast without demand for the huddlings of sex. But again, this is an example of the masculine and feminine coming together in a balanced equality, not a sexual, not a romantic relationship, but just in a terms of comrades. Comrades, a horrible word. We're talking about governments and whatnot, but companions or friends, that kind of idea. So I like that interchange. Toward the end here, Chani looking, she stared at Paul with a look of wonder, and then Paul took a deep breath, trying to still the tempest within him. So she's still having this effect on him, but his prescience as well. When he hears his mother, give this these words, sing this song, his mother's words had locked on to the working of the spice essence, and he had felt her voice rise and fall within him like the shadows of an open fire. Through it all, he had sensed the edge of cynicism in her. He knew her so well, but nothing could stop this thing that had been begun with a morsel of food. That first time he took that spice and it ramped up all these things within him. Terrible purpose, you know? So that's the idea that he's fighting against. And later on, he says the prescience he realized was an illumination that incorporated the limits of what it revealed. At once a source of accuracy and meaningful error, a kind of Heisenberg intimacy intervened, the expenditure of energy and reveal what he saw, change what he saw. So this idea that he's got this prescience, he's got this knowledge of the future, these possible paths, but this is, you can easily see where Lucas took, a lot of the Jedi, the future is always in motion, as Yoda says, that idea, it's always there. So yeah, I think it's cool to see that. And again, this is Paul's, even though he's warning against that superhero, he's still absolutely a good person. He's easy to root for. He's trying to save people, to save lives, to be a good leader. At this point, so you're really for him. It's a great protagonist.
Yeah, he's been raised correctly. Mm-hmm. He has a strong father, strong mother. He's had good male influences on him. He knows right from wrong, and he does not want to be the center of this jihad whirlwind that's coming that he's not going to be really able to avoid, sadly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the next chapter, we see Jessica shining a bit more too, in her understanding and that feminine kind of empathetic understanding of the politics and the political angle here, and wanting to secure their place for the people, as quickly as she can. They find out about the water. Jameis is wanting to challenge Paul. And I do like it when they find out about the liters of water they carried in their pack. A big deal to them, and Stilgar glanced at Jessica. Is this true? Is there water in your pack? Yes, liter johns of it. 2 liter johns. What did you intend with this wealth? Wealth, she shook her head, feeling the coldness in his voice. Where I was born, water fell from the sky and ran over the land in wide rivers, she said. There were oceans of it so broad you could not see the other shore. I've not been trained to your water discipline. I never thought I had to think of it in this way. A sighing gasp rose from around the people. Water fell from the sky. So she puts them off. She's off put by their accusation that she would hoard this water like that. So she puts them off with her, description of her home at first. And then Stilgar says, "Did you know there were those among us who've lost from their catch pockets by accident and will be in sore trouble before we reach Tabor this night?" "How could I know?" Jessica shook her head. "If they're in need, give them the water from our pack." "Is that what you intended with this wealth?" And this is great. It's not a lie. She says, "I intended it to save life." "Then we accept your blessing, Sayadina." So, really politic with her use of, she's not lying. She's not being insincere, but she's also wording things in a way that will be of the best received by them, Yeah,
but Jameis is having none of it.
Nope. You can't buy me with your water, wench. Blah blah blah. Yeah, he's determined to fight Paul. Jessica even tries to intervene a little bit with the voice, but he invokes her to silence. Mm-hmm. And this fight is really pretty cool. So Jameis fights as one who's not trained with a shield. Paul's used to having that technological shield about him. Paul has to learn in this fight. He learns a lot from this fight. He learns how to fight without shielding, because that's what it holds him up for a while from besting Jameis. And it makes everybody else think that he's toying with him. But I like in the end when he does kill Jameis, then we've got the I thought I had it. Oh yeah, okay. Here it is. It's while he's fighting. Go ahead.
Sorry, but just a quick. Well, were you going to mention his training, his fighting training, which was actually what was holding him back?
Yeah, because he's trained with the shield. Yeah, so he's trained not to slash and stuff in certain ways.
But yeah, the attack for a shield, you have to go in slow with the blade. So while he is very quick on the defense, his attacks are slow because he's been training with guys who have shields. So is something that and it says that he is trained so often, it's muscle memory, and he's got to be able to break through of it. And
I'm glad you used that term muscle memory there as well, because this is something that Jessica has tried to tell him, even though your mind is going in overdrive, you still have to learn to control your body. And let's start with the hand muscles and, stuff like that. You need to control your visceral reaction, your instinctual physical reaction. So I like that you said muscle memory, because that is something he has to overcome here. And he has been trained with ideologies too. I like this memory of Duncan Idaho's voice flowed through Paul's awareness. When your opponent fears you, then's the moment when you give the fear its own reign. Give it the time to work on him. Let it become terror. The terrified man fights himself. Great line. Eventually, he attacks in desperation. That is the most dangerous moment, but the terrified man can be trusted usually to make a fatal mistake. You are being trained here to detect these mistakes and use them. So very much a, from the start, he's trained not only to fight, but he's trained as a duke's son to be the heir and to lead one day. And there is an aspect, again, just making the political connections, because most scholars won't do this because they don't like the truths that Herbert draws out about political leaders. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter about political party, anything like that. This is just the nature of political leaders. Anybody that tends to garner that too much power or too much adoration. I remember when I was working on my MFA in writing at the program I was in, Alice Walker, she was a famous novelist, poet, she wrote The Color Purple, so big name. Her daughter was actually a teacher at the university in the program I was in. And she was giving a talk, and because, whose daughter she was, and because of the name she's done for herself, in her own writing, and she's, built up quite a platform of herself, she was approached at one point by the Democratic Party and said, we'd like to begin grooming you for office. That's what they do. Just like Paul was trained very carefully, physical fighting, that's not actually a thing anymore for political office, but all of the politics, all the learning, all of the, the careful propaganda machines, all of that, these candidates are groomed. They're groomed by the parties to a certain point, and then they're placed in the queue to see who's going to, it's not, directly just who rises to the top because the people want them. And there's a whole process in the back rooms to happen here. And, she was talking about that. She ended up turning it down. She wanted to do something else, but that's true. So I think of Paul as being groomed for leadership, and the fighting is just part of that. We'll see more of constantly throughout the book. We see him think back to these lessons he's learned. But when he kills, this is key. So he's killed. He's facing this victory, and Jessica though knows. So this is a masculine feat that he's done. The ability to kill, and that in terms, again, we're talking about the masculinity, the general masculinity, the general femininity. Both can exist in any individual, but we're just talking about these forces here as we talk about the dichotomy of them in this book. That's a masculine trait, or whatever. But Jessica knows now is the terrible moment, she thought. He has killed a man in clear superiority of mind and muscle. He must not grow to enjoy such a victory. And it's a dangerous moment. She really comes at him in such a clear and concise and in a careful way. She forced herself through the last of the troop and into a small open space. There were two bearded Fremen helping Paul into his still suit. Jessica stared at her son. Paul's eyes were bright. He breathed heavily, permitting the ministrations to his body rather than helping them. All right, so he's the leader. He's the victor, and he's enjoying this. Him against Jameis and not a mark on him, one of the men muttered. Chani stood at one side, her eyes focused on Paul. Jessica saw the girl's excitement and admiration in that elfin face, so he's turning on the ladies. He's doing all the big, grunty, strong man stuff, and he's enjoying it.
And and Herbert wants you to know Chani has an elfin face because he uses that 4 or 5 times.
Elfin face.
Elfin
good,
face.
Good way to say she's young. And Jessica says it must be done now and swiftly. She thinks this to herself. So she compressed ultimate scorn into her voice and manner and said, "Well, now, how does it feel to be a killer?" Paul stiffened as though he had been struck. He met his mother's cold glare and his face darkened with the rush of blood. Involuntarily, he glanced toward the place in the cavern floor where Jameis had lain. That's a wonderful moment of the feminine balancing the masculine. Again, with Paul and Jessica, representing the balance here. So far, anyway, we'll see this balance shift to other characters. But that's great. I like that when he has to reveal to them, of course, that he wasn't actually toying with Jameis. They were worried about that. Go ahead.
All right. The part in the fight too, because it also tells you a little bit about Chani. She gave him a little inside information on Jameis.
She did, yeah, that's right.
How to fight. So knowing that this was to the death, She was helping Paul
Exactly.
kill one of her people, and the fact that he, I know you were getting ready to mention it, but during the fight, Paul gives Jameis a chance to yield, and that's
that's true.
That's when they find out. No, this is to the death.
He learns at that point.
Yeah, and then now his mother is chastising him about being a killer. Like,
well, we find out in her thoughts too as the fight's going on. Once he realizes it's to the death, and she said he's never killed a man in hot blood like this. He had to kill, or not like in a careful fight that's premeditated like this. He's never killed a man. He had to kill, say, the guards who were holding them and about to kill them in the thopter. Before and stuff like that, but he's never, in a fight where you've got, danger and risk there, you're not catching someone by surprise. So it is a real rite of passage for Paul, for our hero here. And he does it, and she's the lesson to, check yourself with it. He then is given his name. He's given Usal for the tribe there, but then he's allowed to choose a name to be used outside of the tribe. And we remember that he had prophesied, or he knew from the prescience that he would be called Muad'Dib, the little mouse, because the mouse is, wise. It's thought of, it makes its own water and so forth. But he says, and this is interesting. So Muad'Dib, is that the name you wish? Muad'Dib, Stilgar asked. I am an Atreides, Paul whispered, and then louder. It's not right that I give up entirely the name of my father that my father gave me. Could I be known among you as Paul Muad'Dib? And Stilgar said, you're a Paul Muad'Dib. And Paul thought, this was not in a vision of mine. I did a different thing. So Paul's realizing that he's not just a puppet of what was been laid out before him. He's not a puppet of the prophecy. He's not a puppet of, the prescience going on in his mind right now. He does still have free will and free agency. And so that, that helps him try to navigate the waters there a bit. I think that's, let me see. Is that all I had? Yeah, that's all I had for that. Oh, except for the end. And you say anything else you want to say about the chapter, Al, but Paul hearing these words, hear Stilgar talk about Jameis and the ceremony they were going to have for Jameis. Hearing these words, realized that he plunged once more into the abyss, blind time. There was no past occupying the future in his mind, except he could still sense the green and black Atreides banner waving. Somewhere ahead, still see the jihad's bloody swords and fanatic legions. It will not be, he told himself. I cannot let it be. So that's what he's still fighting against. Mm-hmm. Did you want to move on into the next chapter, or anything else but that one? Okay. So
the big point is that that's still ahead of him.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's still the train coming down the track at him.
Yeah. The next chapter, we're going to get into Jameis's ceremony there in a second, but first, Jessica waking up again. I like this because this is interesting. This is the mother who's got a certain amount of control and a nice relationship with her son. Not control in a negative sense, but in a helpful way. But she's seeing him react to a young lady and doesn't really like it. So I must warn him about these women, or the Fremen's women and stuff like that. She keeps saying, and because, on one hand, she's trying to look at it from a leader standpoint. One of these women would not do for a duke's wife, but maybe for a concubine. I like this. There's another thing Jessica thought Paul must be cautioned about their women. One of these desert women would not do as a wife to a duke. As a concubine, yes, but not as a wife. Then she wondered at herself, thinking, have I been infected with his schemes? And she saw how well she had been conditioned. I can think of the marital needs of royalty without once weighing my own concubinage. Yet I was more than a concubine, so really having a heart for herself and trying to think about the, those who would be concubines yet loved as wives and whatnot. So interesting little moment.
Yeah, but she before that, she had heard the approaching footsteps, turned to see Paul come out of the cave depths, trailed by the elfin-faced Chani.
He does like that term. The elfin face. I don't know if there's really a synonym for elfin, though. Is there? Or you could say the round face. I guess that would try to make it sound like she's fat. And certainly not that. But.
And the thing is, I know what he means. I mean, what it would mean to me. Yeah. But one thing I want to point out is the very famous quote at the beginning of the chapter.
Please do.
Arrakis to train the faithful.
Yeah.
From the Wisdom of Bloody by Princess Irulan.
And this, of course, is referencing what Paul first learned from his father, the idea that Arrakis's conditions are just like the what are they called? The Sakur
Secunda.
no.
Is that what the Sardaukar?
Sardaukar, yeah, they're the planet they came from, something Secunda or something like
Secundus, yeah.
Secundus, yeah. So it's just like that. It's going to, because it's so brutal, it will nurture such a warrior people. So and then Paul and Jessica are going through that quote unquote nurturing now. What I like about this passage of the dead, this ceremony for the body of Jameis, and Paul is there. He's going to receive the water and everything like that. We find out, but Paul realizes that he's expected to speak. He's expected to speak. And I like the way they spin things. Stilgar did not like Jameis. Jameis is a pain in his butt. But Stilgar knew Jameis's worth to the tribe. And to honor him, he says, I was a friend of Jameis. He says he gave his life to let us know for sure about this prophecy or whatever, about these two, to trust these two. That's a pretty positive way of spinning what he did. But, it's in effect, that's what happened. And then Paul starts to realize that he's expected to do this. He's expected to do this. And he hears his mother's voice in his head. How does it feel to be a killer? And this is where her words really take effect. And it's a wonderful character moment for Paul. And I love the way it's worded here. When he slowly, Paul got to his feet. A sigh passed around the circle. Paul felt the diminishment of his self, as if he'd advanced into the center of the circle. It was as though he had lost a fragment of himself and sought it there. I love that word, because that circle, that's where he'd fought Jameis in a circle, and he'd killed in a circle, and he'd lost a part of himself, and he's regaining it with the acknowledgement and the honoring of it. I love that idea. And what he says too, I was a friend of Jameis, Paul whispered. He felt tears burning his eyes, forced more volume into his voice. Jameis taught me that when you kill, you pay for it. I wish I'd known Jameis better. Man, that is wonderful writing. And you can't help but to just really think a lot of Paul in that moment. Wonderful character moment. Really is great. And then, of course, the fact that he's crying, gives moisture to the dead is a big deal for the Fremen, for that's a real honoring. I don't think their suits have any way of reclaiming tears, do they, Al?
Not that I'm aware of.
He's not wearing a suit at that point anyway, I think. But
yeah, but I do like that they all go up and touch his cheek. Like,
that's true.
Like some holy thing that's going on. It's like almost like it's a relic or kind of a mirror, like a statue of like having the miracle of a statue shedding tears or something.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing thing to them.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a beautiful scene. That is a beautiful picture. The tears are often a whole, like the sorrow of Mary, and as Simeon says, her soul shall be pierced with swords, the prophecy and such. And so tears, that can often is a holy thing in religion, and for them to touch his tears like that, it's interesting. Water, as well, goes to the fact, so it makes sense that he would receive the water of Jameis, because he was forced to fight Jameis in that circle, and he lost water of his own fighting without the still suit, the sweat of battle there and stuff. So he receives the water of Jameis. And I do like this little moment too. And it's like, it's more of the foreshadowing, but it's funny. It's cute. So he receives these little coins, these little, rings or whatever, that they're like the money. They indicate how much water he can draw from that huge pool that they keep it all in. And she held him on finger for Paul to see. Do you accept them? Stilgar asked. Paul swallowed, nodded yes. Later, Chani said, I will show you how to tie them in a kerchief so they won't rattle and give you away when you need silence. She extended her hand. Will you hold them for me? Paul asked. Chani turned a startled glance on Stilgar. He smiled and said, Paul Muad'Dib, who is Usul, does not yet know our ways, Chani. Hold his water counters without commitment until it's time to show him how to carry them. Because Paul says, I missed something here, but it's prescient memory. Water counters offered to a woman, courtship ritual. So he's, even though he doesn't know it, he's clearly obviously courting her already,
So that was the firm way of, will you marry me?
Yeah, exactly. Got some water for you. Man, if only ever that easy, right?
Yeah. Turn on the tap.
What else is going on in this chapter I wanted to talk about? Oh, so when they do go to see the full water, I like Stilgar saying there were those among us in need of water, he said, yet they would not come here and touch one drop of this water. Do you know that? So it's a holy, the idea that water is so holy to them, and they are stockpiling this water, quote unquote, so to speak, for Kynes' plan to bring sort of a renaissance or rebirth to the planet of Arrakis. And
literally change the face of Arrakis.
yeah, change the face. Yeah, exactly. That's the phrase. Then at the end, Paul, they asked him to sing that song, from the Bastet, and he sings this song that he knew from Gurney, and Jessica heard the after stillness that hummed in the air with the last note. Why does my son sing a love song to that girl child? She asked herself. she felt an abrupt fear. She could sense life flowing around her, and she had no grasp on its reins. Why did he choose that song? She wondered. The instincts are true sometimes. What did he do? Why did he do this? Paul sat silently in the darkness, a single stark thought dominating his awareness. My mother is my enemy. She does not know it, but she is. She is bringing the jihad. She bore me. She trained me. She is my enemy. Now, not in the sense that he needs to go start fighting his mother. No. Remember, Paul is kind of really stuck, or not stuck, but consumed with the thoughts of the possible paths he sees before them. And his mother is still very much acting in the Bene Gesserit agenda. She's still acting as a trained Bene Gesserit. She still wants to contact them and stuff like that. At least at this point.
Yeah, she was part of the plan.
Yeah.
That is now making him spin into one direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Spinning in one direction. That sounds wrong.
Did you have anything else from that chapter you wanted to talk about?
No, but I'm glad you mentioned that part about just how much she does not like Chani.
No, why does he sing that song to that girl child?
And it's and like you said, is it like you can look at it from several ways. Is it the Bene Gesserit who is trying to protect the asset?
Mm-hmm.
Is it the part of her that is trying to protect Duke Leto in the political aspects,
mm-hmm.
or is she just a mom? Nobody's good for my little boy.
Well, I think it's all of those. Yeah. I really do. I think
Herbert. I say that's a lot of it, but I'm just wondering which one is kind of overpowering the other
mm-hmm.
ones.
Yeah, it's interesting, definitely, and it makes for good. That's good character work, when you can have characters' actions and thoughts like that be so intensely three-dimensional. That's good writing. The next chapter is really a great little break in the pacing. It's a great little action. It does further the plot because we're back on the with the Harkonnens and Fade Raltha. But we get this character of Count Fenring is I really love this character. He's so this bumbling, stuttering, it can barely get a word out. Yeah, and he seems like this old, clueless idiot with this young hot wife. And yet Baron Harkonnen knows he's a deathly assassin. I mean, he's dangerous. He's the Emperor's man. And I love that as soon as Fade Raltha is this impish little upstart. He's one, and he sees it. Fade Raltha knows. So certain things that the Count will say. The Count says, I congratulate you on the perfection of your heir in the light of the elder one might say, so alluding that the older nephew is no good. You are too kind, the Baron said. He bowed, but Fade Raltha noted that his uncle's eyes did not agree with the courtesy. When you're ironic, that suggests you are making deep thoughts, the Count said. There he goes again, Fade Raltha thought. It sounds like he's being insulting, but there's nothing you can call out for satisfaction, because Fade Ralph is not the manipulative, the one who can think ahead and be very calculating. Fade Ralph is all about the action, call him out satisfaction and so forth. And then so Fade Ralph starts to toy with this idea. Oh, good.
Yeah, but I like how he says, listening to the man gave Fade Ralph the feeling his head was being pushed through mush.
Yeah.
Fade Ralph turned his attention back to Lady Fenring. Well, he would. But I can remember when I was reading / listening to this, I was like, oh my God, he's right. I feel like my brain's going through mush.
Yeah. And it's a nice tactic if you are that dangerous assassin to give people a false sense of safety around you,
because you find out he doesn't really talk like that. He does it.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second.
To keep people off track.
Exactly. But Fade Raltha wants to, Buck up here, and he says, and he sees the Lady Fenring. Now, the Lady Fenring's the one who left that secret message for Jessica, on Arrakis there, because the Count Fenring had been there before the Atreides got there. So, by the hours of the Imperium harem, she's a lovely one, Feyd-Rautha thought. He said, I shall make a kill for you this day, my lady. I shall make the dedication in the arena with your permission. Well, that's not done to a married woman. She returned his stare serenely, but with her voice carried whiplash as she said, you do not have my permission. Feyd, the Baron said, and he thought, that imp, does he want this deadly count to call him out? Because Feyd-Rautha doesn't understand that Fenring is quite dangerous. But that what's the word I'm looking for? That I'm blanking on the word again. But impulsive, I guess impulsive is a word, another one for it. So he's very impulsive with his actions, his emotional outbursts there, Feyd is. Now we get this little talk between Fenring and Harkonnen, and this is when we find out, as you said, Al, that Fenring doesn't really talk like that. He is quite dangerous. There's some drama, there's some friction between the Baron and the Emperor, or at least the Baron's or the Emperor's contact there. He's actually only there to look upon the Baron's choice for an heir. Now, this is key because this idea of lineage is obviously a big theme in the book. The Bene Gesserits are guardians of these different bloodlines, and they're trying to manipulate these different things and whatnot. And we know that Paul is the heir to the Duke, but the Baron is he is an older man who just likes young boys. So he's quite impotent in the terms of fertility. He can have no heir because of that. I mean, no, he's had, of course, he's the father of Jessica, quote unquote, but where he is right now with his, lusts and appetites and whatnot, he's not going to be fertile or in terms of reproduction. So he wants to pass it on to a nephew. And it's very, very important to Baron Harkonnen that Feyd-Rautha is the heir and they don't make him choose the other nephew or whatever. So this is the only thing that really gets under the Baron's skin that Count Fenring says is when he says, well, or insinuates you might not have free choice over who your heir is. That is something that worries Harkonnen because that's part of his plan, right? To get the other, I forget the other nephew's name. Do you remember that, Al? Raban, yeah. To get Raban to be the idiot who runs Arrakis into the ground that they're willing to kill and let Feyd-Rautha come in and be the hero, for it. So then we get to the fight here between Feyd-Rautha in the arena, the gladiator arena here, and we find out that well, first, before it starts, into the so Feyd-Rautha steps in. He's supposed to make the dedication of the fight. The music stopped. Into the abrupt silence, he stepped back 2 paces, raised the key, and shouted, "I dedicate this truth to..." And he paused, knowing his uncle would think, the young fool's going to dedicate it to Lady Fenring after all and cause a ruckus. "To my uncle, the patron, the Baron Vladimir Harkonnen," Feyd-Rautha shouted, and he was delighted to see his uncle sigh. I love the way he's messing with him, But then the actual fight here is interesting because they've already recruited Hawat to be their mentat now because they lied to him and they told him that everybody's dead and Jessica was the traitor and so forth. So Hawat's their mentat, and he's devised this plan for Feyd-Rautha. If they just drugged his opponent, if his opponent just came out drugged for him, then the audience would know that. They would figure that out. So instead, they've planted this word. It's a psychological trick. So when Feyd-Rautha is in close fighting and says the word scum, it will psychologically paralyze, his opponent because they've indoctrinated him with that sort of programming. But then Feyd-Rautha realizes that this is no just average gladiator slave he's fighting. This is an Atreides man. This is one of Duke Atreides' people that they captured. So he starts to think, wait a minute, Hawat was one of the Duke's men. Am I being set up here? Did they not plant anything? And tells you, what kind of great warrior are you, Feyd, if you got to depend on, treachery, and he's got the blades. One's supposed to be poison free and one's supposed to be poisoned with those two. He's depending on all this treachery just for victory, And so there's that wonderful tension in the fight of, is it, what's going on? You don't know, is Hawat betrayed or whatever, what's happened. But in the end, of course, he says the word scum and it ends up working to his benefit. And he does best the Atreides man. At this point, though, he still defies his uncle a little bit. He refuses to chop the head off. Wants the man to be buried, with his blade and stuff like that. But we do have this little back and forth between Count Fenring and the Lady Fenring there, in which we find that her Bene Gesserit agenda is to seduce Feyd-Rautha. So that is what she's there for,
Mhm.
to carry on that bloodline within herself. And I like Fenring's reaction. He's like, he's in on this plan. And he's like, well, I do have my own primitive emotions to overcome about it, letting your wife go out and be impregnated by another man, and she's like, oh, you poor thing. And it's just really kind of what the heck is going on here kind of conversation. But you learn of the Bene Gesserit's plan there before the chapter ends.
Man, things are really weird on Gady Prime.
Exactly. So that's all I had for that chapter. Do you have anything more there?
Nah, pretty much straightforward. A little bit into the mind of Fade Routha. Not well, he's a Harkonnen, so he's not exactly programmed to be a good guy, but he's. I don't think he's completely like evil.
Fade,
yeah, he's still got a little bit of.
Well, he's raised to it, and he's kind of programmed by it,
Yeah, he's an unfortunate young man who probably would have made an excellent leader. We were talking about how Paul was raised by Leto and Jessica and all the men of the Atreides men.
Yeah.
Fortunately, he is like the opposite. He's had look who he's had kind of like holding his hand. That's not a hand you want to be held. Yeah.
No. And you say opposite, and that's good, because if Paul is the Messiah type, then Fayed's the Antichrist type. He's the opposite, or the shadow of Paul, who would have the throne, who would usurp Paul and take his throne. So yeah, perfectly opposite in so many ways. I think we've got time to get through one more chapter, maybe. So let's go ahead and do that, and then we might just fold over one chapter into next week's reading. But that's pretty good, actually, for the sake of how much we had to cover. But in this next chapter, we have Paulization, that Chani finds out that Kynes has passed away, because Paul doesn't know until this moment that Liet was Kynes' Fremen name. So he hears about Liet a lot, but he didn't realize until now that Liet Kynes, that was Kynes, So he finds out that Chani is Kynes' daughter. And this links them, as I think Al pointed out in an earlier study. They've both lost, and Chani points it out to Paul here in this chapter, they both lost their fathers to the Harkonnens. So they both lost that masculine influence of parentage. So they're both in need of that, and they both kind of they're going to look for balance in each other, especially by the end of book 2, which we're not going to quite get to. We'll cover that next week, I think. But they find that balance in each other ultimately, because they've both been imbalanced by that. It's interesting. And Stilgar has acted as sort of a surrogate father to both of them in a lot of ways, in terms of stepping in there. But Paul has learned that he's to inherit Jameis's coffee serving, just kind of a weird random thing to throw in there to these desert people. But the tent and all that, and
that's not all he inherits.
Exactly, that's not all. He inherits Jameis's woman, and Hera is there. And Stilgar said, "Do you accept Hera as woman or servant?" Hera lifted her arms, turning slowly on one heel. "I am still young, Usul. It's said I still look as young when I was with Jeff, who Jameis bested." Jameis killed another one to win her, Paul thought. Paul thought, if I accept her as my servant, may I yet change my mind later in time? And Stilgar says, yes, you have a year. And Stilgar smiles upon this caution, that he takes. And Paul says, I accept her as servant, Paul says. Hera stamped a foot, shook her shoulders with anger. But I'm young. Stilgar looked at Paul. Caution's a worthy trait. And Hera's not having it. But I'm young, she repeated. Be silent, Stilgar commanded. If a thing has merit, it'll be. What a wonderful lesson for young people to learn. If a thing has merit, it will be. Stop being so impatient and upset because it's not happening in your timing and whatnot. Yeah. But this interesting between. Oh, go ahead. You take it.
Kind of thinking Hera had a little cougar in her and kind of like.
Well, she did. If he was a cruel master, she could be fated to a life of nothing but hard service, or whatever. Going from a life of being one's wife to that.
Yeah, but also beyond the wife, he's got 2 boys, 2 kids.
Yeah, he has 2 children to always have a responsibility for. Yeah. And he kind of calms her and assures her a little bit, you'll always have a place with me. I'm not going to turn you out. But he's not interested in her romantically. There is this one moment though, because he's asking her finally when she finally takes him to their tent there, and he's asking her for information, learning about some of the education of the children there, learning that they're actually going to have to abandon that sietch here soon. He felt a sudden reluctance to be alone with this woman because he'd get to the ledge of the tent. It came to him that he was surrounded by a way of life that could only be understood by postulating an ecology of ideas and values, a completely different culture than his. He felt that this Fremen world was fishing for him, trying to snare him in its ways. And he knew what lay in that snare, the wild jihad, the religious war he felt he should avoid at any cost. So there's a number of things he's resisting here. He's resisting temptation of just the woman Hera. He's resisting being wrapped up in the Fremen ways, because then if he forgets who he is, if he forgets the Paul and just becomes the Muad'Dib, he will just steamroll into these paths he sees before him. I like this. This is cool part here. See it. For your comfort and convenience, when you are out of your still suit, she gestured. They're talking about the reclamation chamber off the room. It will be done in its. You said we have to leave the sietch, Paul said. Shouldn't we be packing or something? It will be done in its time, she said. The butchers have yet to penetrate it to our region. Still, she hesitated, staring at him. Now, he wants her gone, right? Because he doesn't want to be alone with her. What is it? He demanded. You've not the eyes of the Ibad, she said. It's strange, but not entirely unattractive. Paul goes back to his firmer. Get the food, he said. I'm hungry. She smiled at him, a knowing woman's smile that he found disquieting. I love that. If you've never experienced that, that's some serious disquietment. Let's just say that. I am your servant, she said, and whirled away in one lithe motion, ducking behind a heavy wall hanging that revealed another passage before falling back into place. He's doing some key symbolism, some very Jungian, very Freudian stuff he's doing with the language there. But it's really interesting. Again, it's not that Paul is in love with Hera or anything like that. No, he's taken with Chani. But again, he's coming into that point of noticing the opposite sex in that way. But it's also jumbled together with his prescience and his trying to navigate these paths he sees before him. So
she's an attractive woman. But I like the one thing when he was first talking with her, and he's like, "Do you hate me for what I did?"
Yeah, good point. Yeah,
and of course, she's been through this before. It's a way of life for them. But it's like, for what? Because I killed James. Mm-hmm. It's like, aren't you going to mourn? She's like, well, I'll mourn in the morning time.
Yeah,
it's just all these little times of him getting into the culture of the Fremen.
Well, we've already seen from the ceremony of Jameis that their quote-unquote mourning isn't really a personal mourning so much as it is ceremonial. Yeah. Like Stilgar is not really personally mourning the passing of Jameis, but ceremonially he said the right things about him and so forth, So you're wondering, wow, it's that idea of falling back into the practicalities of life that ignores some of the honor or some of the or not honor, but like some of the manners, like Hawat saw with Thufir saw when he was talking to the Fremen, or Jessica and Paul are finding out now, So it's interesting. I do want to go ahead and save the last chapter before book 3, then for next week, just for time's sake. And I think it's an interesting chapter too. It's great to springboard us into book 3, so it'll be kind of nice to talk about that before we actually cross the threshold of book 3, which is a bit of a time jump. But trying to figure out where's a good spot to stop. Was this amount of reading too much for you, Al?
I made it.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a good hunk, but I got there.
So trying to look at our calendar here. So 1, 2, 3. So we could do like 4. Feasibly we could do this. Yeah. What do you think is that too much? In my book, it would be from 365 to page 444. So not even quite 100 pages. It'd be a little bit shorter than this last one, I think. It'd be up to, let's see, the chapter we would stop at, the epigraph says, how often is it that the angry man rages denial of what his inner self is telling him? The Collected Sayings of Muad'Dib by Princess Irulan. That would be where we stopped at. We didn't read that part. So the last actual chapter we read would start with why didn't the man just number these, for crying out loud? Let me go back to the beginning in here. Last actual chapter we'd start with, the epigraph says, when law and duty are one united by religion, you never become fully conscious, fully aware of yourself. You are always a little less than an individual. Really great epigraph too. We'll talk about that. When law and duty are one united by religion. That'd be the last chapter we read for next week. Then we've got the last little chunk of the book to be divided into two for the last couple of weeks. And that would give us 2 weeks to divide a Halloween tree. And then I was thinking on that last Tuesday, instead of a book study, we could do a rewatch of the Halloween tree before Halloween.
I think I've gone too far. You said it's not a big hunk.
It's not a huge hunk. No.
I must have passed it.
So that's what we'll do. I'll take a picture of it for the group, but just for those out there to reiterate again, the last the chapter we stop at, as soon as you see this epigraph, don't read any further when it says, how often is it that an angry man rages denial of what his inner self is telling him? And in my book, which is the Sci-Fi Book Club's edition, it's from page 364 to 444. So not even quite 100 pages in my book. So that's where we'll go for that, I think. That's a good scheduling, I think. Helps us along with that.
How often is it the angry man rages denial of what is the inner self is telling you?
Don't read that chapter.
Don't read that chapter, so that where it ends is like, before I slay her. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow, so 534 in the paperback, if anybody's reading the paperback version.
And it's not quite as long a haul as this last bit of realize, but that's good because then the last bit we can divide into 2, and I think that's good. That's how we'll work that. So that's good. So that's what we'll do there. That's for next week, next week's reading. And then we should, just in 3 more weeks, we'll finish this up. And then don't forget that Troy, who is very much a Dune expert, especially with the Paul Lynch or the David Lynch movies and stuff like that, he is going to handle the rewatch of the movie at some point to be determined. He'll announce that. And that's going to be fun. I'm going to definitely, I hope schedules work out. I really want to be there for that, to hear all he has to say about that. And so, that'll be the rewatch taking care of that. Did I missed it? Did Fan Man do his Second Cup Cafe this morning?
He sure did.
He did. Okay, good. I didn't see the link. Usually post it in the Facebook group. I didn't see it this time around. It was okay. Yeah, I had I stayed up really crazy late last night working on my classes because everything online now. Usually I teach all day Thursday, but now that it all has to go online Thursday, that means I have to prep all of Wednesday night lectures and everything. So I slept in a great deal today, and so that I missed that. But yeah, that's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Oh, Matt Wilkins is here. Welcome, Matt Wilkins. Says reading Chapter House Dune right now. Awesome. Very cool. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to getting back to EU book studies too. Matt Wilkins, of course, I just want to shout him out there. His channel, definitely want to subscribe to that. But he runs the Star Wars Expanded Universe. And I'm forgetting the exact URL, Matt. Feel free to tell me or drop the. I don't think it'll let you drop here. I'll make you an admin for a second there, Matt Wilkins. If you want, you're welcome to drop the link to your website in. I'll make you a moderator so you can do that for a second. But yeah, great website. And that's the one that I had done some books, reviews of some of the EU that I need to get back to. Got so busy. But a great website, really wonderful stuff for us Star Wars EU fans. So you can check that out.
Troy's saying name the date and he'll make it happen. Well, we're not sure when the book's going to be 100% done either. So,
well, planning in 3 weeks to be done with that.
Yeah, but you want it to be close. You want it to keep it close, or
it doesn't matter to me. That's his baby if he wants to make it close. He says name the date though. So yeah, we'll talk. We'll talk and see what works for you. And I don't want to mess up any scheduled movies you guys already have for your Saturday rewatches. But yeah. Matt Wilkins, I have the wrench of power. Yeah, enjoy. And Troy's dropping those great links. Thank you very much, Troy. Appreciate that. So there's the link for the Facebook group. And that's the Expanded Universe Facebook group. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. So there's also, let's see, this is Thursday. Tomorrow night is the Friday Night Frights on the Fan Man's channel, and he's rewatching The Blob, right, Al?
Yes, we are watching The Blob, the
remake.
The remake from the 80s, which was filmed in his hometown.
Yeah.
When he was young. Uh, he has a lot to give, a lot of information to give about the film.
Mhm.
A lot of little behind the scenes. He's talking about some of the places where they filmed it. It's a good
Yeah.
one. It's a good film too. I enjoyed it. We watched it last year. It's going to be his annual.
Yeah, he wants to make it every year. Yeah. He's
Yeah.
got a little piece of the blob, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. Matt Wilkins dropped the link to his channel. Yeah, I definitely recommend you go check out his channel too. A lot of fun stuff. Also board games and stuff too, if people are interested in that. And Troy dropped the link to Fanman's channel. Thanks for dropping all these links, Troy. Yeah, and so that's Saturday or Friday. On Saturday, the Saturday night rewatch is over on Troy's channel, and he'll be doing Prince of Darkness, John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness, starring Alice Cooper. With a very short bit part by Alice Cooper, but if he's in it, it's starring as far as I'm concerned.
With some other people.
I love Alice Cooper. He's the man. He's so cool. Yeah, so that's good. And that's at 10 p.m., I think.
Yeah.
Is that when you guys still do those? Yeah, okay.
Yep,
yeah.
10 p.m.
Saturday night, 10 p.m. I don't know if Wolf Tim Media is doing. I'm planning an impromptu stream talking about my experience being bullied. Oh, interesting, Wolf Tim Media. Let us know when you're doing that. But sometimes on Saturdays, Wolf Tim Media will do his own Weeb Watch. So that's something to look out for.
Weeb watch. Anime.
And then that's the abbreviation. That's the radio edit. I like that.
Yeah.
Sunday night, of course, we've got the Weeb Watch as well. Also, hours on Age of Boomer's channel, and that's with Troy and Age of Boomer, and that's really great. And like I said, that's kind of the spiritual successor to the Office Hours. Here we had the Study Hall, they call it. I think it's an Office Hours anyway. Study Hall, they call it. It's a successor to the Office Hours stream, in which they'll talk about their takes on the modern geek news and stuff like that. And like I said, you get to hear Troy's take on it, and Age of Boomers, which is all kind of slightly different within the community, which is good. All in the same book but different pages, so it's good to have the variety there. So yeah, Matchstick's channel is the Weeb Watch, and Age of Boomers is the Study Hall. Sound Engraver says downloaded He-Man theme piano reduction for musical analysis. I finished the Superman theme 1978 also reduction. Yes, Sound Engraver has some amazing videos coming up. She's going away, so she's not going to be here for her Monday night streams in a little bit, and that takes us to Monday night. So for this Monday night, yes, Sound Engraver is going to be doing the Monday Night Muse stream. Her commentary she usually does Monday nights. But coming up after that, she will be away for a couple weeks. So she's planning some videos to hopefully drop on those. And she's going to talk about the original John Williams Superman score and the He-Man theme, which I'm going to make my popcorn and be so excited for those. That's awesome. Exactly. Right up my alley. That's perfect. So yeah, that's Monday night at around 9:30-ish. Tends to be when she gets started with that. This Tuesday night, though, coming up, of course, Tuesdays and Thursdays in the morning, Fan Second Cup Cafes for 11 for those of you awake in the morning hours. But Tuesday night is the rewatch. Still doing my Tuesday night classics show, and we're still doing Universal Monsters, for the Halloween season. So this Tuesday night is the iconic Bride of Frankenstein, which I should mention that Age of Boomer himself will be joining us for. So Sound Engraver's taking off, while she's got her trip and everything. So she's taking off the September, October rewatches, but Mr. Age of Boomer will be joining us, our usual panel for that, which I'm very much looking forward to. So he's got a great content to contribute. Yeah.
I mean, widely considered to be the best of the Universal horror flicks.
And I think artistically, that's just almost objectively true. I mean, it really is. People are going to have their favorite and stuff like that, but just artistically as a film, it really is something. So
yeah, when you pair it with the original, it's a masterpiece.
It is a 2-volume set, so to speak. Definitely.
Right,
yeah. Sound Engraver says, I think for the topic this Monday will be how to compose a hero's theme. That is interesting. That's wow. Really tapping into this audience. That's great. So yeah, make sure you check out. Please do subscribe to Sound Engraver's channel if you haven't yet. Troy, Thankful Troy is dropping all those links there. I appreciate that, Troy. Yeah, if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe to get those notifications, because that sounds like interesting fun. How to compose a good hero's theme. I know we have a lot of musical people in the community here as well. And then Tuesday, of course, like I said, Tuesday Night Classics on my channel. There'll be a pre-show, an art analysis pre-show at 9, and we'll jump into the rewatch at 10. Wednesday night, Green Lion Girl, I think I saw you in the chat here until dawn. Okay, great. I see that now. So you're going to be doing that. So Green Lion Girl just started this last Wednesday night some gaming playthroughs on her channel there.
Yeah,
and, Wednesday at 9 p.m.
It was pretty fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I dropped in for a while, but I had some schoolwork to do, so I couldn't stay long. But yeah, Al was there, and she's got a great setup. You can see the screen wonderfully. You can hear her voice very clearly. So definitely, if you like gaming playthroughs, she's doing Until Dawn, which is a horror game. So perfect for the season too. Yeah, that's Wednesday nights. Thursday night, we'll be back here, as I said, for the next section of Dune. So we covered our week.
Mm-hmm.
Anything coming up from your channel, Al? I know you've been kind of in a different place lately, but any Afternoon with Al plans? I know you don't announce them, but any possible plans for them?
Well, there's always a possibility. The next thing that is planned, though, is not this Saturday, but the following Saturday when we'll be watching The Ghost of Mr. Chicken.
Yes.
The incredible, wonderful Don Knotts.
Yes.
Such a fun film.
It really is good.
Yeah, it's I've been wanting to do a film like that for a while, and I'm glad I pulled the trigger on it.
Yeah. And Al's got a great theme for his channel, for his rewatches this season. He's doing Ha Ha Halloween. So on the Saturday night rewatches, they tend to bounce between Al and Troy's channel, and us sounding great critics randomly here and there. But for Al's choices this season, he's doing Ha Ha Halloween, which is all the comedy Halloween movies. So I'm surprised you didn't get Transylvania 65000 in there. That's a great one.
Well, there are a lot of good ones. I could have done quite a few different ones.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
What's next year?
And on Halloween night, you're doing Young Frankenstein, right?
Young Frankenstein, Mel Brooks classic film. And
so for those
before, and then I think a couple weeks before that, it's the Abbott and Costello Meet Frankenstein, the classic Universal.
A lot of good ones.
Comedy. And
if you go and join our Facebook, the Professor Geek Facebook group, Troy is so wonderful about making schedules, and they're really cool. He even got artistic with these schedules too. That seems pretty neat. They look like old TV guides and stuff like that. So they have all this info for you. I know we're throwing out a bunch of dates and stuff, but if something spikes your interest, you can hopefully latch onto it. But if not, you can go to that Facebook group and see those calendars that we have there for all the upcoming content. But yeah, that'll be good. So on Halloween night, those of you that don't have to lug around children trick-or-treating as I do, you can join Al and Troy and Nanette and watch Young Frankenstein. So, all right, I think that's it then. Anything else, Al?
No.
All right.
Let's watch that Mandalorian trailer. It's great.
All right, folks. Thanks for as I said, Al's off the spectrum. He's off the scale.
Have faith. Must have faith in a little bit of Baby Yoda. He's so cute.
Oh my gosh. Did you see Fan Man's tweet about that? All it took was a little puppet to get you shills and blah blah blah.
Sometimes a little puppet.
I love the spectrum we have here. But all right, thanks guys for hanging out with us. We'll be back with more content as we just laid out, and see you soon. Thanks for hanging out. And until next time, keep enjoying and digging deeper into the hero stories you love.